Everybody, what's up? So, I wanted to talk about my final thoughts on the Vampire Survivor. It's been about a week since I finished it or so, and I really haven't had the time to film this video. I found it interesting for the most part. I think the DLC, it, that's what made it more interesting. Ode to Castlevania was the only one that kind of irritated me, and I'll explain why. With that one, they kind of give like this riddle aspect, if you will, about, how to unlock certain characters. And there actually is one mission where you're given two characters and people are going, is this co-op? What's going on? There was some that I had to look into because I'm not really played a lot of the Castlevania games, especially the console ones. I've really only primarily played the ones for handheld. I've not gotten really through them because I tend to, go back and forth. So that one was probably the biggest pain in the rectum for me. Um, Another one aspect that I didn't like really was the cost of unlocking some characters. Once I found the right combination of a couple different characters in order to get money, I was able to build enough to where I could also just literally let the game play for itself, try to earn money and I'd go as far as I could. But the problem is you have to keep going and going more and more. The characters that you really need to unlock to get these can take a while. They're also part of certain DLC, like the main game, like for example, there's, kill so many of this, creature, whatever. That gets irritating because of the fact that you're just going, there's one mission where you have to defeat what they call a non-red reaper, but if you don't have a keyboard, from what I've read, you can't actually get the character, so you have to use a cheat. The only way to get the cheat is to unlock more stuff, and then yeah, it's just like this big back and forth that gets frustrating. That's the problem with the DLC. There's like one where you have to kill so many bats, for example. But with the trying to remember if it's the DLC or not, you get this like area that's primarily nothing but bats. And I wish I had known I was going to get that and unlocking it because I would have used that to finish a mission. It's the other thing is like it didn't really go through all the modes. There's about five different ones. The ones that I primarily used were like one that you can play infinitely. Excuse me, you have what's called a limit break, which is basically, you just go through. You can expand your weapons as much as you want from the base level. That one I really liked. There's one called Inverse, and like I said, you have to unlock these. I hate that one because enemies get more health, but with certain missions, you have to do it. The problem is you may not know you have to use it until you're like going, what's wrong? What's going on? What's going on? And then you find out you have to go into inverse mode. Everything is just flipped upside down. That was another one I couldn't stand. Uh, there's this deal where, you defeat a certain enemy and all of a sudden you get 20 characters. So this is Ode to Castlevania. That's one of the ones that kind of irritated me as well because you get a useless, I'm gonna say this, you get a useless character. You really do. And I'm like, it's like one of the Fleamen going, what? Why? This has got to be like the most useless character in the game. Um, like I said, the riddle part, going through, exploring, which is something great. Obviously, going in infinite mode. There's two other modes. I can't think of the name of them. There's like hurry and one other one that you unlock, and people are going, okay, have this mode set on. Once you have it to get like this certain character, you have to have a certain character to get and unlock an enemy to earn a character. I do like, as you progress, the different weapons you get. There's one called Stigma, who basically has every weapon. He has like this high amount of, if you can skip, um, picking an object, weapon or whatever, you can basically get rid of an object and you can reroll to get another weapon or another item to help you out, which I thought was really cool. One thing I do recommend with stuff like that, the items or the weapons, is sometimes it's best to like fill your 6 slots and then for each, and then if you need to, like pick up a weapon. There's at some point like you can get a candy box, and there's a step up with the candy box where you can pick different items, sorry, certain weapons. Um, like in some cases, you get like this pack, which you can pick another item. So, like if you have everything, you're like, oh, I needed this, you can go and pick it up. You can also increase your stats using money, and that's one of the things where like there's Sigma or there's a creature, you have to lock so many of them, and it's just basically like saying the level that they're in, where you can get and earn a lot of money once you figure things out. The combination of weapons and items is really good, and although you really want to use them right away when you find out how much money you need to upgrade in that, it does, in that sense, get a little frustrating as well, because the higher the stats, the more your money, as well as the characters. There's one called Chaos, which needs the most money in the game, but also there's one character called the Librarian. In order to get him, you have to basically either use an unlock cheat or there are books you have to find, and once you do that, you get him. But then there is a quest called buy all the books, and you're going, what the heck? And you have to buy these certain items to really be able to get that character. With the endless mode, one of the nice things about that is there are certain bosses you can actually attract if you just stay in the same place. And also people are like, oh, these characters only generate at such time frame, which is true. And that is frustrating, but if you're in endless mode and you're a certain part of Castlevania, for example, you can actually do pretty good with those. There is one called, what was it? Oh crap, I can't think of it now. I should have looked it up. It's just like this area that has all of these, these rooms. You have to go through them to find certain items, which you only get from like drops, for example. And it's nice to have those at times because you can actually get more money. There's another one that it's kind of like once you get it, it's actually like a card. It has these cards as well where you can pick different, ways to play the game. You may have to pick one of those cards to play the game. There's one that you find much later that like can basically give you all sorts of things, which I really like. Especially there's an attract orb that you can just find. It just pulls everything in. Like if you dropped experience or whatever, that's great. There are a couple of areas in certain parts of the game that I've had to look it up. I admit I had to use a guide because I was playing and playing and playing. Like I could not find the area. Now keep in mind, I can only play so much at a time, so it took a long time. So finally I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find a guide so I can go and find this game. Sorry, at this point, it was just like, what is going on here? So if you want, like a road type game, um, where you can go and play the Castlevania mode. You can have like different other characters. Like I said, Fleetman from Castlevania is pretty useless. There are people that also would consider to be useless as well, but everybody likes to play different things. Is it worth playing? Especially like if you want that type of aspect, if you want something that can be a time killer, I would recommend it. Once you start playing originally, it takes about 30 minutes before, Reaper comes in and you go. There is actually a final Reaper in the game, which I saw no way to defeat. So I was like, okay, sure, why not? It also does expand on a few other things, but definitely the longest you're going to have is always going to be the old Castlevania with unlocking the 20 characters, unlocking new areas. Um, in some cases, there are a couple of enemies where you really, really have to work hard on defeating them. There's a boss mode which I really liked. It's like boss rush. It's like just like an area where you get all these bosses coming in and you're going, hey, I can do this. But at a certain point, it'll reset if you're using endless mode. Um, I primarily use that to try to defeat a certain boss, the non-red reaper, which, like I said, you have primarily, unless you have a keyboard, and do it just right, you really need to use that cheat code. Um, I'm just going to give an example of something. As I mentioned, you have to use two characters in order to be able to unlock another character. The problem with that, like a lot of people says, they think they're co-op, but you use them individually, but you have to defeat the same level. So I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. There are some characters where you get a combination of them, and it's, you think, for example, certain places, except for like one mission, um, you're limited to like only certain weapons, but then you find out, well, you can use those weapons as long as it kills the enemy, you're fine. So, highly recommended. I don't give scores on this. Like I said, if you're looking for a time killer, short missions or whatever, like 30 minutes. Well, it's actually about, I'm trying to remember which one. Normally the clock hits about 15 minutes before a Reaper shows up, which can be frustrating, especially when you're trying to kill several different types of the same enemy. So, would definitely recommend it. If you like games like, for example, Brotato, where you keep going and going and going, definitely play it. If you're someone who doesn't like to spend a lot of time unlocking characters to get forwards in missions and complete the game, it's not for you. That's everybody. I'll talk to you later. Take care.